But first, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for contributing, if you haven't already. But I mean, just the outpouring of support is just incredible. It's a very difficult time for us. It's very emotional. We go back and forth between wanting to sit in a corner and cry, and then on the other hand, just sitting here and realizing just the outpouring of support lifts our spirits. And right now our spirits are a little bit beaten down, so it's greatly appreciated. We started the rebuilding the Condors Big Sur Sanctuary campaign just 2 days ago, making it available, and it's just going incredibly well. We've got pledges from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to help us rebuild the Condor release facility, and lots of other donors across the whole country, in fact. And we set a goal of raising $500,000. And at first I thought, you know, that's kind of a big number, but we've got a lot of damages that make sense. We've got a lot of work to do, get back into restoring condors to the wild. And I'm proud to say that all of you and collectively our supporters have either given or pledged half of our goal already. So once again, thank you so much. And if you can, spread the word to others. I want to turn it over to Joe Burnett, senior biologist overseeing the Condor program. And he's going to give you an overview of how the birds are doing and all the work that's going into trying to find the birds in the wild. And I want to go ahead and apologize in advance because I have so many donor responses to get to, and I don't want to make people wait, and media responses and everything else. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that and turn this over to the rest of the team. But once again, thank you and enjoy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in. It's been quite the roller coaster ride the last week. I can't say enough, as Kelly touched on. So the format for today, I'm going to give a Condor fire update. Obviously, everyone wants to hear what's going on. And then followed by my fire update, we're going to hear Mike Stake, our other senior biologist. He's going to talk about vultures of the world. It's an amazing presentation, so please stay on after I'm done. So for my talk, I'm going to give an update, and then we're going to have time for questions because a lot of the questions are related to the fire and how the birds are doing. Hopefully I can answer most of those in my presentation. So yeah, here I'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, as everyone knows, the fire hit Big Sur. It was the cause of the fire still unknown, but it's suspected to be arson. It started about 3 miles south of our release site in Big Sur. That's pretty close as the way the Condor flies. The fire took off pretty quick. And everyone knows we have our Condor cams as supported by explore.org. This is a great partnership with explore.org. They supply us the cams and the stream and allow us to get images from the Condor Sanctuary and from the Nest Cam that everyone got to watch this year with Iniko. And they've allowed us to get these images out to the world. And it's been one of the most incredible things we've ever done. But we always thought, wow, what if something happens? And we had that scenario lined up. So this fire started on the evening of 8/18. And one of the first things I noticed with that I never thought the cam would be so useful in is I got called by Big Sur Fire Chief and asked, hey, I think we have a fire. We got a report of a fire down on the South Coast, kind of near you guys. And I said, hey, let me look on the cam and let me pan it to the south. And when I panned it to the south, this is the image I saw. I saw a red glow on the horizon, and that's nothing you ever want to see in Big Sur. And I immediately confirmed to the fire chief that we had a fire. And I also have friends and acquaintances that live in that part of the coast. We immediately started calling people, and one woman claims that this cam saved her life. So it was one of the really amazing, uplifting stories that came out that I never thought this cam, obviously it's great for condors, but I never knew it would be that important to the community. So anyway, I get choked every time I say that, but anyway, day one, we got a fire burning and it's growing fast. Unfortunately, it started at night, so the bigger fire crews couldn't get to it till the morning. So this fire had a big head of steam behind it. So we were watching this closely and saying, already starting to pray a little bit because we knew it was coming our way. Day 2, or this is kind of day 1, but rolling into day 2, 8/19. The smoke is clearly coming into the canyon. The condors are definitely picking up on that something's going on. And it was really interesting that day. We watched on the cam as the birds basically just started coming in, and most of them were coming to the water source that we have. It's a spring-fed water source, and they were just tanking up on water. You could tell they were preparing for something. And it was almost, they were all gathering, and it was really interesting for me as a biologist because the real dominant birds weren't being so dominant, and it was more of this communal kind of, oh wow, there's something big coming, and you could see it in the birds' body language, everything. So this was day 2, and now the fire is probably less than a mile away, and it's moving quickly. We're getting reports, and our window to get up there on this day to go up and evacuate any equipment or anything, that window quickly disappeared because fire crews closed down the entire area because of the fire behavior and what was coming towards us. And again, this is part of that day, the end of day 1. The fire actually breached. I'm sorry, day 2. The fire actually started coming over the ridge, so it was coming a lot faster than we thought. And again, you can see here the condors are on the slope, and meanwhile we got this forest fire burning right at the bottom of the canyon. And it was interesting to watch their behavior. They were kind of, in a way, almost territorial. I thought they were kind of, what's this fire doing in our canyon? Kind of attitude. And they were pretty nonchalant, but I think they were probably covering it up. I think they knew something was coming. So by day 3, this is what we were seeing on the cam. This was all live streaming. It was pretty amazing and terrifying at the same time. The fire was down definitely in the canyon, and it was coming our way. And we knew it was either going to hit in the by the afternoon, or what ended up happening, hit that night. In this photo, you can see in the foreground, you can see the condor release pen just down there on the slope at the bottom of that grassy area. And remember where that is, because the last image I show is the last image we have of the pen before it burned. The fire behavior was like something I've never seen. The cam captured what the true power of wildfires and what Mother Nature can unleash, and this was no exception. The flames on some of these images we're talking hundreds of feet tall. So it was just something you didn't want to be in the way of. And I think this image captures the power probably more than anything. And I'm always asked, like, how can you build something for a wildfire like that? And I don't know if you can. When you have a wildfire this powerful, I'm sure there's probably something you could build, but this is a testament to the power of this fire. So this is the night of. We're about 9:30 at night. The fire's creeping up on the release pen. You can see it's about to engulf the release pen. It's coming up like a head fire right up the ridge where the release pen is on. Across the canyon from here in the image to the left, about a half mile away, we have our cabin. That's where the crew stays when we're up here doing our work. It's a small kind of hunting style cabin. It's probably about 600 square feet, and that's where we house and stay and cook food, and where we stay for days at a time when we're doing our condor work. There's also a big work shed there, and where we store equipment. We have gravity fed water. We have solar power, a lot of infrastructure there. So as you can imagine, when I saw the flames here, I knew what was happening over at our cabin probably wasn't good either. Again, the Condor cam proved to be a really valuable resource to the firefighters, which we were really thankful. It was a dire situation, but it was nice to know there were some silver linings. It helped the community in timing some of these evacuations. It let us get head counts on the birds. We had birds coming into view right up on the day, right before it burned. That day we had, I think, I had 27 birds show up So we were able to get head counts, which is really important as a biologist. We wanted to know who was there, who we knew was alive before this fire hit. And that was really, so the CAMs, I can't say it enough for the explore.org relationship, that the CAMs were just really incredibly important to us understanding where the fire was and how the birds were doing. Iniko, we also had the CAM going with Iniko. And this CAM, so back to the release slope CAM went out at around 10:32, I believe. The fire finally reached the CAM, and the CAM lost connection. So we know at that time the CAM probably burned. And meanwhile, the fire was still approaching our second camera down the canyon at this nest where Iniko resides, and everyone's been watching Iniko. So the fire came in a little later, which was good. We knew it was burning a little slower, probably not as hot as up top, which is, any advantage we can get, we'll take. And we knew he was in a redwood, he or she. We don't know Iniko's gender. And our past experience, in 2008, we had 3 nests burned over. All 3 chicks survived, amazingly. And one of which was in a large redwood, and the entire redwood burned, the base of it burned, and the chick was totally fine. The chick was above the flames, inside the protection of that cavity, way up high. Not to say that the flames couldn't have, in a lower nest like this one, it couldn't reach the chick. So we're remaining optimistic, but we're also being realistic. We know the redwoods can offer protection, but sometimes in some fire situations it can, if the combination is right. So right now we're waiting for the fire to calm down. This area is still smoldering and burning. There's a lot of dangers in this canyon still. We are going to get up there as soon as humanly possible when it's safe to do so, and we're looking for direction from the firefighters and the incident command before we go in there. So it might be a week or 2 before we find out about Iniko. And we also had not only Iniko in the path of this fire, we had 3 other nests, all in redwoods. So we're hoping at least, that we hope all 4 make it. We know redwoods can protect these birds. So we're trying to remain as optimistic as possible, but we know there is a chance that some of these birds may not have made it, some of these chicks. So we'll keep you, as soon as we know, we will we will share that immediately. And it might be good news, it might be bad news, but either way, we will eventually find out. And our hope is really that if not all, at least a few of these chicks made it. And one of the other signs, so the pairs that raise these chicks are the first ones we go look for. We know we can't get to the nest. We're like, okay, let's go try to track down the parents. And some of these birds we haven't seen since the fire started. So for this nest, for example, we have found mom, Redwood Queen. We know she's alive. We know she survived that first onslaught of the fire, but we have not detected dad. So we are in the process of sending up aerial plane survey. We have contacts with folks that can take an airplane up and fly over these areas from very high over the danger zone and try to detect signals for birds that might be hiding in different places. So that's a flight that's potentially going to happen tomorrow, and we're very excited about that flight. We're hoping we can find, we currently have 10 missing birds, including Kingpin. There's also 1 male missing from another pair that's raising a chick that we're hoping we find. So yeah, outside of the 10 missing free-flying birds, we also have the 4 chicks that are unaccounted for right now. So those are the 14 unknowns, if you will. So we're spending our time round the clock looking for the birds. I was able to get up the ridge. This is right after the burn through our canyon. I couldn't get down into our canyon. It was too dangerous. But I was escorted by the local fire crew, and I was able to at least confirm that our facilities did get destroyed. I saw the pen, the remains of what was left of the release pen. I confirmed that our base camp was indeed burned to the ground. And this canyon, this upper part of the canyon experienced really extreme fire behavior. You can see these photos, just folks that have been through wildfire. This is definitely this thing burned pretty hot. And we are just around the clock out there radio tracking. On the presentation today with me, I have Darren Gross, one of our Condor crew biologists, and he's going to be after I'm done here helping us field questions. But Darren, Stephanie, and Evan have been out tracking, and Amy have been out the last week. That's all we've been doing is, and we had it initially, we had 17 missing birds, and we've gotten that down to 10. So we hope with tomorrow's flight, we can whittle that down even further, and hopefully the losses are minimal. In 2008, we did lose 2 of the free-flying birds. We think they probably roosted in a dangerous spot and got burned over. We never actually found them, but they never reappeared, and they disappeared right when the fire burned through our canyon. So we assume they perished in the fire. So we know condors can, and it's happened in Southern California. We know condors can get caught by these wildfires. We just hope that that number isn't 10. We hope it's much lower, ideally 0. But that's the current status. This is the pen that was lost. This was a photo. This is the photo we took right after we rebuilt it after the 2008 fire. So we built it in a very fireproof manner. All the walls were made out of fiber cement board. The roof is metal, and somehow it still burned in this last fire. So yeah, those fires are pretty darn intense. They even melt metal, so we know how hot they can get. And again, the Condor Sanctuary is a wild place. We are trying to keep it wild. I mean, that's what we intended to do when we started releasing condors there. That's why we love this location. So to us, we want to keep that wild nature there, but it is a trade-off. When you keep it this wild, when wildfires come through, you're a little more vulnerable. But we want to keep that pristine nature going in our sanctuary. I think that is one of the biggest magical things about this spot and why it's been so successful at bringing back the condor. And while, these losses would be a setback, we are going to keep moving forward. We've had other setbacks in the past. This is by no means going to slow us down. It's going to set us back a little bit. But working with our partners, Fish and Wildlife Service, Pinnacles National Park, Los Angeles Zoo, Oregon Zoo, San Diego Zoo, we're strong. And these folks have our backs, and they've already said it. So you guys have our backs. And I can't thank you enough for the show of support. I mean, for the crew, it's been pretty emotional. So I always get choked up, but I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And this video is going to make you even more emotional. It's a video taken yesterday, and I think it captures everything. So this is Condor 470 flying, and he flies over right when this fire truck is passing. It's almost like he's ushering the fire truck to the fire, and you can see the fire in the background. And Stephanie on our crew caught this, and we thought it was just perfect. It was, showed the condors almost supporting the fire effort. So it was a real cool moment. And of course, everyone's heard we're raising money to rebuild. We can't say enough how much the support, the outpouring of support has been incredible. And go to our webpage, ventanaws.org. We have a whole rebuild campaign going on. We also started our annual online auction started today. So we're really excited about that. You can get on there and register for that. Awesome stuff to auction off, and all of this again not only supports Ventana Wildlife Society, but it supports our continued work to recovering condors. So I'm going to quit talking so much, and I just real quick, the current status of the fire. It's 21,000 acres, and this is called the Dolan Fire. If you're looking it up on the internet, it did start on August 18th. Again, the cause is suspect arson, but it's not confirmed yet. It's actively burning now to the east. It's past us and moving north towards Partington Ridge, and it's burning to the south towards Lucia. And again, that's the latest on it. And there's plenty of resources on the web where you guys can keep up with it. And in terms of updates on the birds, I will do my best to keep our website updated, our Facebook, all our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever one you guys like, that we'll keep them all updated. And then of course on the website, but any new information we get, you guys will be the first to know. And again, we can't thank explore.org enough for having these cams in place and letting us get a look into the world of Iniko. And let's just hope the best for Iniko. I mean, I think these birds are survivors. They're the strongest animal I've ever worked with. Incredibly resilient, and a species to be really admired. So right now I'm going to get to some questions just in terms of time here. Darren, you want to jump in with me on these awesome questions we got from, these are questions that were sent in, and then we'll probably hit some comments after this. But right now I'm going to go through. Darren, can you hear me?
Yep. Loud and
Awesome.
clear.
Darren's here. All right, Darren, let's start with, we have Janet Clover from Petaluma, California, is asking how many baby condors have survived. Right now, we know we have 8 total nests in Central California, 4 of which we know were burned over by the fire. The other 4 are doing great. So as of right now, we know 4 of 8 nests are okay. All the chicks, by the way, in these nests are about 4 to 5 months old, and they typically fledge at around 6 months. So they're pretty large, as you guys saw with the Iniko. They're almost full grown, which is good. That makes them hardier. That's gonna, especially for the bird chicks that were burned over, that gives them a little more strength to survive a real extreme event like that. So that's another encouraging thing we had on our side. You want to hit the next one there?
Sure. Yeah. So Melinda Silvestrin recently started watching the condors on the cam, and she was asking, what does the chick eat? And also just had a comment on the parents' feathers, how they look so thick. And so the chick is eating basically the same things that the parents are. So the parents, when they eat meat, wherever they're finding it, whether that's at our site, if they're finding it on their own elsewhere, they bring it back to the chick, and the chick is getting the same food that the parents are. And then, yeah, the condors have a lot of feathers. It's always kind of surprising to see once we have them in hand just how thick those layers of feathers can be. There's a lot of down. They're really well insulated. So yeah, they're really prepared for everything California weather can throw at them.
Cool. Next question is from Hugo De Cruz in San Francisco. How is Iniko doing? Again, as soon as we know and can get in there and tell you guys, we will. And we really hope he's okay, but still a ways to go, I think, before we can get in there. Good question.
Yeah. Jan Mothershed asked how many wild nests in California are being affected by wildfires, and then also if there will be more supplemental feeding to help birds in fire areas. So yeah, as Joe said, we've had 4 nests that have been affected by the Dolan Fire here. As far as I know, I think currently those are the only nests in California being affected by wildfires. But in terms of the supplemental feeding, if we're doing more, yeah, I mean, our partners over at Pinnacles National Park have been putting food out. We've been putting food out at our southern release site in San Simeon to try to draw condors there. And there's definitely been a lot of bird activity over at Pinnacles, definitely.
Yeah, we think the fire will provide more food sources. Fires do burn over and other animals are caught in the crossfire. And yeah, that, those they're dead. So there'll be a potential scavenging, on the scavenging menu for a condor for sure. Let's see. Yeah, Jen Nagel from San Jose, are they okay? And again, yeah, we're going to let you know as soon as we do. Most of the birds are, which is really encouraging. 90% of the flock is fine. So that's definitely a good thing. And yeah, Diane Glim, right after this from Pacific Grove, did baby Iniko survive? Again, when we know, you will know. As of right now, we don't know. We're just trying to track everybody down. So good question. You want to get the next one, Darren?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So from Candace Basham from Sunnyvale, she was asking how, well, do condors eat partially cooked carrion after a forest fire? And then also, how does a fire affect the condor's ability to fly, or if there are changes in the thermals? So real quick, just to answer those first 2 questions. Yeah, as Joe said, the condors can use carrion created by fire as a food source. Other raptors and scavenging birds do that. They'll hang out around wildfire and sort of use it as a way to get food. And then in terms of if a fire can affect a condor's ability to fly, we know they definitely try to avoid most of the smoke and things like that are getting into the air where they'll be flying. I'm not, I don't know, Joe, if you have anything to add on this. I'm not sure if really it changes it else like that much otherwise, but.
No, just the smoke prevents them from going into certain areas,
Yeah.
Definitely the smoke, they kind of steer their way around the smoke depending on which way the wind's blowing it. But yeah, it definitely impacts them on where they can go and can't go.
Yeah. And then just to continue on with Candace's questions, she asked about Phoenix, who survived the fire in 2008, if he was being fed by the parents, and then how savvy are these condors about fires, and was any action taken after finding Phoenix alive? So Phoenix did it, he was fed again by the parents after it was safe enough for the parents to go in there and start caring for the chick again. Yeah, the condors really, if it's, especially during the day, they can be pretty savvy about it. They'll fly away from the fires, kind of as we saw on day 2 of the fire burning, when all those birds at base camp just took off kind of together. What we get concerned about is if a fire creeps up on them at night when they're roosting. That's definitely makes us a little more nervous. They're less prepared to escape that, just with it being dark. It's harder for them to navigate and such. And yeah, I think once, again, Joe, you can add on here if there's anything else, but I think once they found Phoenix alive and the parents were caring for him, they just let him go. Just let the parents continue the care on after that.
Yeah, we did throw a radio transmitter on them. It was very early when the birds first started nesting. We were really curious to see how, obviously, if the chick was going to survive after going through this huge stress of a fire. And he, Phoenix did. He's one of our strongest in the flock. He did make it through this fire. We have seen him since. Yeah, he's now nesting on his own and raising his own chicks in the wild. So really another tough, really resilient bird right there. Let's get to the next one. We got Sheila Spiewak, Los Angeles. Can you determine where the flock is at this time? And how are you going to address the possible loss of birds? Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. We have some GPS transmitters fitted on some birds, but not all the birds. And those are really helpful. They're really precise. They give us an idea where birds are. We also use radio transmitters to help detect, and then just visually, we go out with scopes and binoculars and spot them. And luckily, they have the tags, which we can identify each individual. In terms of the loss, if we do end up having a loss, a bigger loss than we expect, this potential for 14 birds. Fortunately, the program is at a place where we can rebound from this. The captive breeding programs are super strong. The world population of condors is now over 500 birds. There's over almost 200 birds in captivity that are helping produce the birds we release. So while it would be I'd said before, it'd be a temporary setback, but we would be able to rebound from it. Fortunately, we are at a place. If this had been early in the release program, at the early days of back in the late 90s, this would have been a much bigger deal. But that's how far we've come in their recovery, that, it's, while it would be a setback, I think we can definitely overcome it.
Yeah. Michelle Machona from Oakland is asking if there's any news on Iniko, and yeah, we'll let you know as soon as we find something out. We're hoping to be able to check on the status of that nest soon.
Yeah, we got Leslie Meadows. Have you been able to use drones to check on? This is actually an inquiry we get a lot. We actually asked the Forest Service, who's managing the Dolan Fire, and there's a big restriction on using drones in fire areas because you have a lot of plane traffic and helicopters coming through dropping retardant, and drones could potentially collide with them and cause, God forbid if it took down a helicopter. But yeah, it's a no-fly zone for drones, unfortunately. But maybe down the road we can, when things calm down and the fire is moved out and that area that's burned calm down and not so active with fire traffic, we might have a window to go in. But yeah, until they deem it safe to do so, that's not an option.
Yeah. Nancy Christensen from Hayward asked if there are any other matching donations coming up and if it's best to donate through the website. Yeah, I think all the matching donations are in the description on our website and in some of the press releases that have been coming out. And yeah, the website link there that Joe has featured in the background there, it's that's gonna be the best way to donate. And then also she continues to ask, if we're putting carrying out for food or carrying out for the condors at Pinnacles or elsewhere to try and get a count, and if the big Sur condors have headed over to Pinnacles. And yeah, I mean the Pinnacles National Park crew have definitely been putting food out, and yeah, we've definitely noticed a lot of birds hanging out over that way the past few days.
Yeah, it's been a huge help, and that's what we suspected. You know, the fire might push some birds out because we have a strong flock over at Pinnacles, and the two flocks mesh. They're basically one flock, so they, a lot of times, even when the weather gets bad on the coast, the birds will move inland. So this is pretty typical. So they have actually, they accounted for quite a few birds we thought were missing, ended up popping up over there. And we were hoping that for these other birds that are missing right now, that they are just somewhere around Pinnacles where they haven't been detected yet. And that would make a lot of sense to us, that they kind of got out of Dodge until things calmed down and then came back. Let's see, Gina Jacobs. What can we do to help condors in addition to donating money? That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways to help. We have year-round kind of different activities. The biggest one is, you know, come and help and clean it up on the Big Sur coast to reduce micro trash. That's a great volunteer project. We like to get folks, but that's one of the ways. And obviously there'll be a lot of post-fire cleanup effort and stuff like that. But yeah, just tune into our website. We always post volunteer opportunities on there. Species. Let's see, do you know, you got one there, Darren?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so from Serenia Torres out of Los Angeles. She was just asking if the condors and vultures in the sanctuary are okay, or if they were evacuated. Luckily, you know, we didn't have any birds in the pens or anything at the sanctuary. And as far as we could tell from the camera footage we were able to get, a lot of the birds that were hanging out there took off a bit before the fire actually reached. So yeah, we're hopeful. And yeah, as Joe said, we're just working through trying to keep track of everyone and getting a head count.
Yeah, and you know, as we look through these questions, there's a lot of questions from people about Iniko and just the status of the birds. And we really appreciate everyone's concern. And we definitely have heard you on these questions. We're going to try and pull out some different questions from those. I feel like we've kind of answered those pretty good. Let's see, we got one here. What new features or capabilities do the new wing transmitters have compared to the older model? Well, that's pretty cool. Actually, this is Darren's specialty. He's been doing some research on GPS tags. So I mean, GPS have gone through their own evolution a little bit.
Yeah. So some of the work I'm doing, I'm looking at a GPS data, actually from Condors, looking at their activity around wildfire. So that's the GPS technology is really taken off. I mean, we can get hits from condors like every few minutes, if not every like 30-second periods. So that's really been helpful for me and for a lot of other researchers and folks working on condor conservation.
I'm seeing a few questions here. They're kind of I'm going to try to generalize them together, but they're basically asking about the impact of smoke on condors. And that's probably one of the biggest impacts, as you know, I think we've been told by veterinarians that the smoke will actually hurt condors before the fire does. They're you know, obviously their air sacs, their respiratory system is different than ours. It's incredibly sensitive to smoke. And so, yeah, I think the condors that get overwhelmed by smoke, we've definitely seen it out in the field. We have a couple condors right now that appear to be almost sick, like smoke sick, just like humans get when you get overwhelmed by smoke. And they go find a non-smoky place to kind of hang out and recover. So yeah, the condors are very sensitive to smoke, just like we are, probably more so. So I think they try to avoid it. And you know, for us, the worst case is what Darren pointed on, is they get burnt. They have a fire approach while they're roosting at night, you know, up in a big tree, sleeping for the night and they have a fire burn under them, that could be a situation where even the smartest most experienced condor would find itself in a pickle and have a hard time getting out of there. And again, it would probably get overwhelmed by smoke first before it would even burn. So that's what I've been told. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, and can you track Iniko's parents' locations to the nest right now? Yeah, we're trying our best. Again, our access is limited. We would love to follow 190 and really see if she's hitting and coming back to the nest, but we can't even get that much access to where we can pinpoint that. But that would be great. Down the road, we should be able to figure that out and see which birds and which pairs are going back to their chicks after the fire. That's what we did in 2008. We were able to look at GPS and see which birds started going back to nest. And that helped us figure out that some of these chicks probably made it. So that was a great tool. What else we got?
Here, I got one real quick, Joe.
Sorry.
From Scott Scheidt from Modesto. One of the questions he asked was, are these condors capable of finding enough food without human assistance? And actually, that just this past week, we've noticed in the past few days, there's an area along the coast, a few miles north of where the fire is burning. There's a sea lion colony, and we frequently find condors looking around for food there. And there have been 2 sea lion carcasses washed up there that quite a few birds have gone down to feed on. So they're definitely still finding food beyond just what we've been able to provide for them, especially now.
Yeah, that's and we saw that in 2008. The birds definitely thrive on their own. They nest on their own. It's probably one of the most common questions we get. Can they feed on their own? Can they breed on their own? And the answer is overwhelmingly yes. And again, with the lead poisoning issue is one of the big reasons we still provide a supplemental food source. It's a small amount compared to what they find out in the wild, but it's a tool we can use to help monitor the lead situation that the birds are being exposed to. And that is, and the bigger picture of things, even this, if we end up losing this many birds to the fire, lead still every year on average kills, not that many, but it does, over the period of 10 years, takes out a lot more birds than fire ever does. So that's how serious the lead poisoning issue is for condors. It is definitely preventing the flock from really flourishing. So, it's a great example of of an issue that, it's fire is more dramatic, but lead poisoning to us as biologists is way more dramatic in terms of the survival of the species. So that's a great question. A lot of the other questions, I think we've already hit. The camera, the cameras we think are pretty much burnt, and, as soon as we can get them going again, we will. But again, the priority right now is finding these missing birds. And, we can rebuild pens, we can rebuild our sanctuary, but, replacing birds is really hard, especially some of these really old, experienced birds. They carry so much knowledge. They carry so much of the weight of the flock, and, they're hard birds to replace. But that's our biggest priority right now as a crew. And this might one be good. From Ellen Sass from Illinois. From the standpoint of the entire ecosystem, is this burn preventing future large infernos in the forest where condors live? Do you know how much longer it will take to locate the missing condors? Yeah, we've hit on that. We know fire is important to this area. Obviously the cavities condors are nesting in redwoods were created by fire. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship they have with fire, and redwoods and condors have this kind of evolving relationship. And if you're sometimes that same thing that helps you might set you back. So it's so the nest Iniko is in, I think everybody saw on the cam, the walls of that nest had been burned by a previous fire. That tree itself, is probably close to 1,000 years old, and I can't tell you how many fires that thing has survived. So redwoods are built for it. They depend on fire, and for their own life history, they need fire. So it's part of the system. It's part of the natural cycle. Again, a regular occurrence of fires, like really high occurrence of fires repeatedly, that's not good. Obviously, that's not a natural pattern. So that's where we're at right now. We've had 2 fires pretty back to back, and I think that's been the hardest part about this fire. Any
Hey,
other
Joe, there
questions?
was
Yeah, go ahead.
one more kind of question, I think, that was missed, that was asking if any of the chicks did not make it, will the condor pair try nesting or try laying again next year, or do they still wait the 2 years?
Oh no, they'll nest again, right? They'll do it as soon as possible. So that's a great question. Yeah, condors, if they lost their chick, unfortunately, they will live to fight another day, and they'll start nesting as soon as possible. It's instinctual. And you know, not only fires, we've had chicks lost to other reasons, and the pairs, you know, they reset the button and start over. And you know, that's why for us, we're really focused on these adults, these pairs that have been breeding so long and are so important to the flock. Obviously, they're high on our priority list to find. But you know, all these birds are really high on our list. We're just doing our best to find them. And again, we have constraints right now that, you know, as the fire calms down and moves on, we'll be able to get a little more access. But we're pulling every straw out of the hat we can think of to find these birds. So we got an airplane going up tomorrow. That's going to be exciting to see what they find, and we'll let everybody know over the weekend what the results of that flight were. And again, we're hoping he gets up. The weather conditions, you know, with the fire are really all over the place, so there is a chance the flight could get delayed. So we're just really crossing our fingers. I think that's going to be a really important to what we know about what happened to these birds. Yeah, I think we're at the end of our questions here. Kathy, do we want to hit any comments, or should we get on to Mike's talk?
Maybe let's move. Any word on Pascal? I noticed there's a lot of question if we've found if Pascal is one of the missing, or if it's one that we.
No, Pascal is accounted for. The missing birds are 167, 209, 375, 678, 892. One of our chicks we tagged that fledged last year that we recently tagged. And then there's a bird from Pinnacles, 448. And then another wild chick from Pinnacles that we recently tagged. And again, we're waiting for genetics actually to figure out who's who on those birds we just tagged. And I might have missed one in there, but those are the ones and again, 167 is high on our radar, 448. He's the other one that's nesting in a redwood that burned over. So those two males haven't been seen. And 209 is actually a real high ranking male that we hope turns up. And 375 is also a really strong breeding female. She's nested for years over in the Pinnacles area. So we're really crossing our fingers we can find these all these birds. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Mike Stake. He's got an awesome talk about vultures of the world that is going to be really great. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing and let Mike take over here. There he goes. Welcome, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. Let me see if I can start the presentation here. And I realize that that the fire is first and foremost on everyone's mind. And for the sake of time, I'll just make this real short, maybe just take a few minutes and cherry pick some of my favorite parts of the presentation, and then maybe leave a little time for you to ask more questions. We can field more questions, but we'll just sort of use this as a break to examine some of the other species of vultures around the world. And this is a nice picture that shows that not all vultures are in trouble necessarily. We have these turkey vultures, and I offer this picture of a king vulture. A lot of people tell me that vultures are beautiful birds as long as they're flying, implying that up close maybe they don't have the virtue that we ascribe to beauty, but vultures will surprise you if you look at all the different species around the world. And I throw this king vulture up as a little bit of bait for you to join us on September 5th. We will be featuring a virtual visit to the Los Angeles Zoo. That will be pretty exciting. You can get a close and personal encounter virtually with a king vulture, and so you can see one of these for yourself at the Los Angeles Zoo. That will be on September 5th. Vultures come in many different sizes and shapes. We think of them as being big birds, usually some dark shade of brown or black, but they can really surprise you. The Andean condor in the upper left, the largest by wingspan, up to 10 feet. And then we have the Indian vulture next to it in the center, upper center. Smaller vulture is the Egyptian vulture. It is one of the few that's basically white or very pale colored. Working clockwise, we have the lammergeier. This is a bird that doesn't necessarily feed on flesh as much as bone. And so their diet is very unique. And they're named also bearded vulture for the black tufts of feather near their beak. Next to it is the palm nut vulture. This is an African species, and it breaks the norm in being not an obligate scavenger. It is very much like the fish eagles. It eats fish, but more than 60% of its diet consists of palm fruits. And then completing the circle, we have Ruppel's vulture, which has the distinction of being the highest flying bird. At least that's the highest observation we've had at 37,000 feet. By contrast, our condors, GPS tags them often over 1,000 meters, over 3,000 feet when they fly over the Salinas Valley, but they don't get nearly as high as this 37,000 foot champion. So vultures are very unique, have a lot of variation to them, surprisingly. And there are 23 different species. I show you all of them here in a cartoon. The smaller species up in the front row include the turkey vulture, and then the larger species in the bottom row, the California condor, is right up there. Now, of these 23 species, 12 of them are endangered. And that's not a very good proportion if you're a bird family. As bird families go, vultures are in as much trouble as just about anyone. Of those 23 species sprinkled in this picture here, there are 8 birds with the genus name Gyps, G-Y-P-S. And they're all very similar. We don't know much about them here in North America because they occur in Asia and Africa. But those Gyps species, I'll point out a couple on the bottom row. You can look at the Eurasian griffin and the Himalayan vulture. Those are 2 Gyps. And they have kind of a similar shape. They both have the white neck ruff of feathers. And based on how those 2 look, you can look at the other birds and pretty much guess which of the others are Gyps. Cape vulture, perhaps, Indian vulture, white-backed vulture, white-rumped vulture. They have a very distinct vulture classic appearance. Why do I mention the Gyps? Well, because 6 out of 8 of those species are endangered. And not only that, they're critically endangered. Just like the condor, they're in danger of being wiped out completely. Condor is in recovery, but these other species, some of them are in pretty dire straits. So you might think that the vulture crisis that I'm complaining about is that there are too many of them. That's not the case. The vulture crisis is that this is a historic picture taken in Delhi, India. And the crisis is that we do not see vultures in this number anymore. This happens to be the white-rumped vulture. Back in the 80s, the estimate for this species was 40 million birds, a nice robust population. Just 15 years later, their population crashed. And when I say crashed, I mean it nearly wiped out completely. Current population estimates are a couple of thousand birds. So they've dropped more than 99.9% in a span of 15 years. Startling. This species has the highest decline in such a short amount of time as any other bird that we know of, more so than any other bird recorded, more so than the passenger pigeon, which went extinct in 1914. And so this decline occurred between the years 1992 and 2006. And this is what we're left with. Very few birds in Asia. I'm going to skip this section on birds in India. I was going to go into more in depth about the other species that are affected and my search for them last year. We'll save that for another time in the interest of time, but I'll just hit on what's killing vultures. And I organize this into just 3 broad categories because around the world, it's really just depending on what they're eating. And so the poison might be different depending on the species and location, but the concept will be the same. The first being unintentional poisoning. It's a shame that I have to use the word unintentional. That sort of implies that some of the poisoning is intentional, and yes, that's true. That'll be on another slide. But this is what we're dealing with in Central California with lead poisoning. Condors are at risk of ingesting lead in the carcasses that they eat. And if we go back to India, the poison is not lead, it's a veterinary drug called diclofenac. This is an anti-inflammatory. It's a miracle drug given to livestock in India and other countries around the world, really. And this drug relieves pain. It helps the animals work longer. The unintended consequence was that the drug is lethal to vultures. It affects their kidneys and they will die of visceral gout. And so the pathway here is diclofenac is given to cattle. The cattle eventually die. Vultures ingest the diclofenac accidentally as part of their meal, and the vultures become casualties. And that's what's responsible for these 90+% declines in the vulture population. The consequence of that is we're seeing that other scavengers are taking the vulture's place. And these scavengers may not be so good. In fact, India has recently suffered from a rabies epidemic. Around the period of time where vultures were in decline, they were seeing 3 times the feral dog bite rate. And so vultures are likely, their absence is likely causing some unfavorable human health consequences. So it's a problem that needs to be dealt with. What can be done here? Well, to make the long story short, they've developed a new drug which works much like diclofenac, but it does not have the poison, the toxicity to vultures. And so it is a safe drug. It's called meloxicam. And slowly but surely, the diclofenac is being replaced by the meloxicam. The governments of the countries in Asia where these birds are have agreed to ban diclofenac. And then there's also intentional poisoning. This is a case where poachers will purposely poison a carcass of the animal that they've taken. It might be an elephant for the tusk, or it might be an elephant just to keep the elephants away from their harvest. Regardless, they're trying to evade the authorities, but the authorities are using vultures to detect the kill. And so the poachers are trying to stay one step ahead. They poison the carcass to kill the vultures and evade the authorities. And that's a particular problem right now in Africa, where we see some mass vulture mortality of hundreds and hundreds of critically endangered species, like the white-backed vulture here, being just decimated. The answer here is not as simple. And then I'll just show that also a threat is collisions and electrocutions. This is a particular problem in Spain. They are doing some work in periodic shutdowns of wind turbines to stop the rate of mortality, but it is affecting huge numbers of Eurasian griffins, another gyps species. And I might add that even though diclofenac has been banned in much of Asia for veterinary use, the companies have found some loopholes in Europe, and it was approved for use in Spain and Italy. Guess where more than 80% of Europe's vultures reside? Spain. So there are some issues to deal with in terms of collisions and regulation of drugs. I'm going to skip this section and close with the main message I think that we're hearing today, and that is that California condors that we've heard about from Joe are very strong, they're magnificent, and they're resilient. So that gives us hope when we talk about this fire. The other species of vultures are also strong, and even though 12 of them are endangered, populations are declining, even though they're having trouble dealing with the human element, they too are very resilient birds. And as far as human perceptions go, I think the tide is turning. We have International Vulture Awareness Day. It's celebrated every first Saturday in September. You can join us September 5th as we celebrate International Vulture Awareness Day. And you can consider this abbreviated presentation as a prelude to that. But it's really about changing the perceptions that people have about vultures, where people, they tend to tolerate them, but many do not particularly like them. And that needs to change. That image makeover needs to happen with International Vulture Awareness Day. And over 100 different organizations have pulled together to celebrate this day worldwide. And so we invite you to join us. Are we seeing a difference? Yes, we are. We've seen a stop in some of the startling declines for some of the worldwide vulture species. We have yet to see if those populations are going to rebound, but at least we've stopped some of the mortality rate that we've been seeing over the last 20 years. There's also hope in the way humans respond to the vulture situation. We've seen it with the German company that produced meloxicam. That's the good drug. This German company probably didn't develop the drug because it was safe for vultures. They probably developed the drug because they wanted to make money. But yet, when they heard about the vulture plight and its link to diclofenac, this German company, Boehringer Ingelheim, they released the patent to their meloxicam. I don't know too much about patent law or why a company would release a patent, but it strikes me as a decision that's not entirely based on business and dollar signs. And the CEO of Boehringer Ingelheim acknowledged that his company was going to take losses for releasing this patent. But he said it was more important for his company to do the right thing. And the result of that is that now companies in Asia, India, all of these countries that are dealing with the vulture crisis, now these companies can produce meloxicam. And now I've seen that teachers are handing it out to the kids as they leave classes in India. The kids are giving it to their parents. They're able to produce it, and there's more access to this good drug. And so now that provides some hope for the vultures. But just the fact that a company would do this at the expense of their profits is a signal that there's a lot of human virtue out there that can save the vultures that are in trouble. And Ventana Wildlife Society has seen that in the past week and a half. We're inspired by your sacrifice. The viewers of explore.org, many of you are here with us. Those of you who write in the comments how much you love Iniko and how much you are in love with condors. Can you imagine such emotion, such kindness and love for vultures? We're seeing a new age where people are not only appreciating the cleanup crew, the vulture specialty of controlling diseases. We're not only appreciating that, but we're appreciating vultures just for being creatures that live among us. And so that's very encouraging to see people do the right thing for no other reason than it is the right thing. So we thank you for your support. We thank you for your donations. They're going to make a huge difference for condors. And we like to open our eyes to the other vulture species around the world that also need help. So I invite you. The auction has started just this morning. I invite you to go online and to start your bidding and to support California condors during this difficult time. Thanks for being here. If you have any more questions, I think Joe and Darren would be willing to stick around a little bit longer and field those questions. We want you to have answers, and thanks very much.
Awesome, Mike. Yeah, and Mike, you stick around too. I think they're going to have vulture questions as well. I was looking at the comments chat. We definitely had quite a few questions in there we didn't get to. You can help me out, Darren.
Sure.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm starting up to the top. How long? Oh, this is a good one. How long can the chicks go without food if they are still alive? We actually were discussing this as a crew, and I touched on it earlier. The fact that these chicks are, in the 4 to 5 month range is a big advantage. So they got a little more meat on their bones. We worry obviously about dehydration more than anything. So the sooner the parents can get back, the better. But pretty confident most of these chicks, it wouldn't be ideal, but they could go probably 2 weeks without a feeding from mom and dad. it would be pushing it. But, you know, again, condors are designed pretty well to go big stints between feedings. Again, it wouldn't be ideal, but we feel pretty confident they could stand up to 2 weeks. And if these chicks haven't been fed yet, they're on probably about day 7 or 8 right now. So they're probably in that stage where they're pretty darn hungry. And again, mom and dad's instincts, the drive to get back to their chicks is, we've seen it in the wild. It is amazing. Just like with other raptors, you see that and across all the animal kingdom is that need to get back to their young is incredible. So they're not going to give up until hope is lost. So they're, you know, and again, if they get back and their chick hasn't made it, they will start again next nest season.
Yeah, I got one here from Bill Eckert. Does GPS data for the parents give any clue to the survival of the chick in the nest? And yeah, it does. It's something we frequently look at really all the time to see, you know, how frequently parents are visiting the nest and how they're doing with caring for the chick. It can definitely be a good indicator if parents are visiting pretty regularly that things are going well with the chick. Right now, I think the fire has just been so active, it's been hard for the parents to get back. We haven't done anything significant yet, but we're going to keep monitoring that pretty closely just to as a way to get an idea of how the chicks and parents are doing. And as I mentioned before, some of the sea lions carcasses that we've seen birds feed on this past week, a lot of the birds feeding down there have been parents. So they're probably trying to stock up for themselves and also for when they can visit their chick again.
Just a real quick note, we are recording this Zoom, so anybody that came in late and wants to watch it later, we will post it to our YouTube page, and we will put a link on our website and whatnot, just to put that out there. Yeah, I saw one earlier. Oh, lifespan of condors. We estimate it's 50 to 60 years in the wild. That's, you know, we honestly don't know how. We know they can live in captivity in their 70s and 80s, or at least Andean condors. But we obviously in the wild they're going to have a little more of that natural stress. So we're guessing 50 to 60 years. And then yeah, Kingpin is our oldest condor. I was on the crew when we released him and 4 others from that release group. 167 is still with us, 171. So we have 2 birds from that very first back in 1997. So that puts those birds, they're coming up on 23 years old. Actually, this spring they turned 23. So pretty amazing that we have birds living this long in the wild. So our hearts and hopes are with 167 Kingpin, that he's still alive and with us. So yeah, let's hope that plane flight reveals some good stuff. You got one, Darren?
Yeah, I got one here from Elizabeth Raftery. What if one parent of a chick died? Will the surviving parent continue to take care of the chick, and can a condor parent do it alone? And yeah, they can. One parent can take care of the chick, especially just in the case, for example, if that happened with one of the nests we have now. Most of these chicks are old enough where one parent can do the job. And they can be fine. It's definitely more work for the parent, but the chicks come out totally fine.
Yeah, someone asked, what is the weather forecast? I wish it was better. We are still in our summer mode out here in California. We typically don't get rain until at the earliest, maybe early October. So we're looking at a long September. We might get lucky and get something at the end of September, but our best bet right now is the coastal fog. We really want that fog to come sock in and put this fire out. I mean, that's probably one of the best things that can happen along the coast for the condors. Again, that won't help so much inland where the fire's spilling over the coast range and going inland. But again, a lot of that area is pretty wild. There's, you know, unfortunately, there's not a lot of residents at risk in the backcountry. So that, you know, the threat to humans is low. But again, that's right now the fog comes in, it's pretty drizzly, pretty wet. It definitely has an impact. It slowed the fire down the last few days in the mornings. It really dampened it. So the firefighters were taking advantage of that, and they were trying to get ahead of the fire. And that is one of the updates we do have. When that fire left our canyon and went to the next canyon, it slowed down because of that fog layer and where those other 2 nest sites were. So we're hoping the fire activity when it burnt through those 2 nests was a lot. We're hoping it was a little not as hot, not as erratic. So that's definitely a little silver lining. We might have gotten lucky there.
Yeah, I got one here. Do you feel the larger intake of water before the fire reaching the site was that a reaction of the condors to the initial smoke in the region, or a preparedness for what was coming, or are there other reasons for that behavior? We definitely think it was related to the fire. It's not. We don't frequently see that many birds around taking in as much water as they were. But yeah, I mean, I think it could be a little both, that they were reacting to smoke that was already in the area. And also, I think there's probably, because condors evolved with fire in the area, there's probably something instinctual, you know, when there's a fire burning or smoke, or when they see that, to go get load up on water as much as they can. So yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of both.
Eve asked a question: will the condors try to return to their home, or will they relocate permanently? No, they will come back. We saw that in 2008. This is their home. Not a wildfire is not going to change that. It's definitely going to be a temporary inconvenience, but the condors call this place home, and they are pretty territorial about it. I think they were kind of not happy to see that fire coming personally. I think they were wanting that fire to go away, because it was definitely raining on their parade. So yeah, when that was the feeling I got that day, when, before the fire hit, when all the birds are gathering, tanking up on water and hanging out watching. You can literally see them watching the fire. I think they were kind of like, what are you doing here? Kind of, this is our canyon. So yeah, they'll come back for sure. And they'll reclaim their nest sites, and there'll be new nest sites created. I mean, with every fire, we get new nest cavities, so these fires literally create nest habitat for the birds. So again, it's a balance, right? You have any? There's one. We got some new ones coming in. Oh, what is the effect of fire retardant on condors? We've never documented that, but obviously it's water-based, so we think it would be fine. They might be a little inconvenienced, but we work with Forest Service and the fire crews to make sure that when they're spraying, when they're doing their retardant drops, they're not doing it on sensitive areas. They're avoiding the nest sites. They have all of our coordinates to all of our nest sites where the condor areas are, these real sensitive areas. So they're also trying to fight a fire, so that it's a balance, and they work with us. And yeah, when they're flying these equipment around, the condors are flying right near them, so the pilots have to be aware of, because the condors, a pretty large animal, you wouldn't want to hit that if you were a pilot, because it would actually be as dangerous to the pilot as it would be to the condor. So yeah, it's a mutual thing not to hit a condor. Yeah, go ahead, Darren. Let's see, does Darren have one? Let's see. We got.
Yeah, I think Darren's on freeze, but
he's on the infamous Zoom freeze.
yeah. But one of the questions that I just saw pop up was about when we're able to put in the Nest Cam again. What will be the process for deciding when and where to be able to do that?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's pretty opportunistic. Not every condor nest site is accessible, depending on where it is. There's safety issues of getting into nest, and yeah, we'll be looking. Ideally, we go right back to the Iniko's nest, to Kingpin and Redwood Queen's nest site. That's the hope. We'll start there, and if we can't, then we'll find another one. And of course, we'll always have the sanctuary cam. That's going to probably be the first one we get back. And just so everyone knows, I mean, the sanctuary cam is very important, has become such a great tool for the biologist and for our management of the birds. That's why we love it, because it also brings you into the condor world, but it is also very much helping us see when these birds come in and out of the site. We can, with the cam, we can zoom in and really see how healthy the bird is. it really gives us a window into the condor world as a biologist that we've never had before, especially in this world of lead poisoning and like what Mike's talk touched on. When these birds get sick, the cams have been huge in us assessing the health of a bird just by looking at it. You know, I'd like, for someone like me who's been looking at them over 20 years, I can really see these subtle changes when a bird is acting off. So the camera has been incredible. I can't thank explore.org enough, and all the folks that watch on explore.org got an awesome following. Iniko is a rock star. That guy, he has a loyal following, no doubt. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the awesome comments on the YouTube stream and on the explore.org. Really great, passionate people watching these cams, and I'm just thankful we can bring you into our world and kind of let you see what we see. But a lot of this stuff you guys are seeing for the first time with us. I mean, we've never seen, especially this nest stuff with Iniko. I mean, I have to tell you that's the first time I've ever seen anything like that. So it's a treat for all. And I think these cams, while we have these issues, like, you know, we have these events come up like fire, you know, I think it's dramatic and it's scary, but it's part of life in the wild. You know, like Darren touched on earlier, condors have been dealing with wildfire for a long time. And, you know, it just brings us into their world. And we have to remember condors will keep going. You know, they're survivors, and we just have to keep supporting them. And yeah, we will have our setbacks. But yeah, just keep your fingers crossed. We're going to do our darndest to find these guys. And we'll keep you fully updated as much as we can. So thank you for everyone for tuning in tonight. And you know, you have our email, you know, you can contact us on our website, follow up with us if you have more questions. And please check into our fundraisers. We have the rebuild campaign going. We have the online auction that's happening. That's really exciting. So please come participate and support the cause. And thank you again. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.